So you've been hearing about the Charleston real estate market lately, haven't you? Maybe it's from friends, family, coworkers, or let's be honest, some random person at Publix who just had to tell you that their neighbors sold their house for double what they paid for it 10 years ago. And you're thinking, what in the world is going on here? Is this market about to implode, or is it just going to keep climbing like gas prices before a hurricane? Well, we're diving into all of that today. What's happening, what's not, and what could be around the corner in 2025. Oh, and stick around because I've got some wild insights coming up about a trend nobody is really talking about yet. Let's start with what everyone wants to know. Is Charleston still hot, or has it cooled off a little? Here's the thing. Charleston hasn't really been cool in terms of real estate since about 2008. And even then, it was more of a hold your breath situation. Right now, we are still seeing strong demand, and a lot of that is coming from people moving here from out of state. The remote workers, the retirees, and the folks who have decided that they're officially over the cold winters up north. Who can blame them? They've been eyeing Charleston, and for good reason. Who wouldn't want the beaches, the history, and the oh so charming humidity that hits you like a warm hug from June to September? But here's where it gets interesting. The market isn't behaving the same way that it did even a year or two ago. Homes were flying off the market so fast you couldn't even blink. It was like, oh, you're interested in that house? Sorry, Karen, it's already under contract. But now things are balancing out a little. We are not seeing those 20 offer bidding wars anymore, thank goodness. But homes are still moving, especially if they're priced right. And that's a key phrase, priced right. If you're thinking about selling and you're trying to ride the 2022 wave, you might be in for a rude awakening. Buyers are smarter now. They're cautious and they're not overpaying just because the house has shiplap and a cute front porch. Now, let's talk about interest rates because that's been the elephant in the room. Are they high? Yeah. Are they scaring some people away? Definitely. But here's the kicker. Demand is still outpacing supply here. Even with rates being what they are, Charleston remains a desirable place to live. And that's what keeps the market moving. And let me just say, if you're waiting for rates to drop back into the 2s or 3s, I hate to break it to you, but you might be waiting a while, like a long while. Think of those rates as the real unicorns of real estate. Magical, rare, and probably not coming back anytime soon. So what's happening with inventory? Well, it's still tight. We've got new construction popping up all over, but it's not enough to keep up with demand. And can we talk about the prices on some of these new builds? Look, I love a shiny new house as much as the next person, but when you're looking at a starter home that's pushing $500,000, it's enough to make anyone choke on their sweet tea. And builders are getting pretty crafty by throwing in incentives like rate buy downs or fancy upgrades to lure in buyers. But let's not forget, new doesn't always mean perfect. Remember, I've been there. I bought new construction once, and let's just say it wasn't the fairy tale ending that I thought it was going to be. My name is Deneene Gary, the Southern Living Yankee. I made so many mistakes when I moved to South Carolina from Pennsylvania. And now I became a realtor so I could help others avoid those same mistakes. You can call, text, or shoot me an email today to start your search and to find out how I help my clients by paying $1,000 of your closing costs. Or you can also download my relocation guide to find out everything about Charleston. Now, I know some of you are sitting there thinking, well, what about 2025? What's going to happen? Well, here's my take. And I'm basing this on what I'm seeing now, what the experts are saying, and just a little bit of gut instinct. I think we're going to see a little bit of a Goldilocks market. Nothing too hot, nothing too cold. Prices will probably hold steady, or we might see some slight increases, but nothing crazy like the double-digit gains that we saw in 2020 and 2021. Interest rates might ease up a little bit, but again, don't expect anything dramatic. And as for inventory, I think we'll start to see some improvement, especially if more sellers who have been sitting on the sidelines finally decide to jump in. But here's the wild card, Charleston's growth. This city is expanding faster than my kids' shoe sizes. And with that comes challenges. Infrastructure, traffic, school zones, it's all part of the equation. And while growth is great for the market, it can also create friction. Not everyone loves seeing their quiet little corner of Charleston turn into the next big hotspot. Let's pause for a second and talk about some neighborhoods, because I know a lot of you are curious about where the opportunities are. West Ashley, still a solid choice, especially if you're looking for a mix of charm and convenience. Mount Pleasant, always popular, but it's definitely on the pricier side. If you're looking for value, you might want to keep an eye on Goose Creek or even Somerville. And for my folks who want something a little off the beaten path, Johns Island has been getting a lot of attention lately. Just be prepared for those 2-lane roads. And speaking of Somerville, let's talk about the suburbs. A lot of people are moving further out, not just because it's affordable, but because they're looking for a little bit of breathing room. It's not uncommon for someone to work in Charleston and live in Moncks Corner or even Ridgeville. The trade-off? You're spending more time in the car. But hey, if you don't mind the commute, it can be worth it. All right, let's get into some predictions for specific buyer groups, because this is where it gets fun. First-time buyers, they're going to keep facing challenges, no doubt about it. High prices, high rates. It's tough out there. But if you're willing to think outside of the box and maybe look at some areas that you hadn't considered before, there are still some deals to be found. Retirees, oh, they're not going anywhere. Charleston is still one of the top spots for people looking to settle down and enjoy that low country lifestyle. And investors, well, they're always lurking. But with tighter margins, they're being more selective. Now, I promised earlier that I would share a trend that nobody's really talking about yet. So here it is. Small town living is making a comeback. More and more people are looking at areas like Moncks Corner or even Bono on Lake Moultrie. Places that are a little quieter, but still close enough to Charleston for an easy day trip. It's like the best of both worlds. Peace and quiet, but you're not completely off the grid. If you're thinking about buying or selling, now is the time to really do your homework. You need to partner with someone who knows the market, hint, hint, and make sure that you've got a solid plan. This market isn't for the faint of heart, but with the right strategy, you can absolutely make it work. Okay, let's talk affordability for a minute. Yes, I know that word feels like a bit of a joke right now. Charleston is not the bargain that it used to be. And the days of snagging a downtown fixer-upper for $200,000 are long gone. But here's what I think. We're going to see more creative solutions for affordability to pop up in 2025. Developers are already starting to look at options like smaller homes, attached townhomes, and even build-to-rent communities. Yeah, you heard me right. Entire neighborhoods designed specifically for renters. And I know what some of you are thinking. Why rent when you can buy? But let me tell you, for a lot of people, renting isn't just about flexibility anymore. It's about not having to deal with the headache of homeownership. And let me pause here for a second, because I know I've probably got some folks watching who are thinking about selling, but aren't sure if now is the right time. Maybe you're sitting on a house you bought 10 years ago, and you're looking at what homes in your neighborhood are selling for, and you're wondering if you should cash out. Here's my advice. First, figure out what your goals are. Are you looking to downsize? Do you want to move closer to family? Or do you want to get out of the city and maybe buy some land? Once you know what you're trying to do, you can make a more informed decision. Because here's the deal. Not every house is going to sell for top dollar. I mean, sure, if you've got a home in a prime location that's been well maintained and updated, you're probably going to do pretty well. But if your house needs work, or if it's priced too high right out of the gate, it could end up sitting on the market. And the longer it sits, the more people start to wonder what's wrong with it. So if you're thinking about selling, you have got to have a strategy. And guess what? That's where I come in. Now, let's get into some specifics about Charleston's submarkets, because not all areas are created equal. Take Daniel Island, for example. That place is like its own little world. beautiful homes, a ton of amenities, and a price tag to match. It's the kind of area where people move because they're looking for a certain lifestyle and they're willing to pay for it. On the flip side, you've got areas like North Charleston, which is seeing some serious revitalization in certain pockets. It's still more affordable than some of the other areas, but you've got to know where to look. And then there's Park Circle, which is in North Charleston. It has been the darling of real estate for a while now. It's trendy, walkable, and it's got that cool up and coming vibe that people love. But here's a little tip for you. If you can't quite afford Park Circle, check out Hanahan. It's close, it's got great schools, and it's still somewhat under the radar for now. Let's shift gears a little and talk about the rental market, because this is a big piece of the puzzle. Rents in Charleston have been climbing steadily over the past few years. And while we might see some stabilization in 2025, I don't think they're going to drop anytime soon. In fact, with the influx of people moving here, the rental market is staying strong. So if you're an investor or thinking about becoming one, there's still opportunity here. But, and this is a big but, you've got to be smart about it. Not every property is a good investment. You need to look at things like location, potential rent, and long-term appreciation. And let's not forget about the impact of short-term rentals. Areas like downtown Charleston and Folly Beach have always been hotspots for vacation rentals. But regulations are tightening up. If you're thinking about buying a property specifically to use as a short-term rental, you've got to do your homework. Check the local ordinances, make sure you're in compliance, and don't assume you're just going to rake in cash because your property is near the beach. Speaking of the beach, let's talk about the islands for a second. Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, Folly Beach, these are some of the most sought after areas in the Charleston market, and for good reason. They are stunning, but they're also expensive, and insurance costs don't even get me started. If you're thinking about buying on the islands, you need to be prepared for higher costs across the board. Purchase price, taxes, insurance, the whole 9 yards. But for a lot of people, it's worth it because let's be honest, there's nothing quite like waking up and walking out your front door to see the ocean. Now, I want to talk about something that doesn't get enough attention: land. If you're looking for an investment that's going to appreciate over time, land is where it's at. They're not making any more of it. And as Charleston continues to grow, land is going to become even more valuable. Whether you're thinking about buying a large parcel to build later or just holding on to it as an investment, land is a smart play. And let's not forget about the folks who are moving here because of work. Charleston's economy is booming, with major employers like Boeing, Volvo, and all the tech companies setting up shop here. It's bringing in a lot of people, and they all need places to live. So if you're a seller, it's worth thinking about how your home might appeal to someone who's relocating. Is it close to major job centers? Does it have the kind of features that busy professionals are looking for? We've covered a lot, but don't go anywhere yet, because I want to get into some tips for navigating this market, whether you're buying, selling, or just trying to figure out your next move. Stay with me, there's more to come. Let's talk about the buyer mindset right now, because I think this is something that a lot of people overlook. Buyers in Charleston today aren't the same as they were 5 or even 10 years ago. Back then, you would see a lot of locals moving within the area, maybe upgrading, downsizing, or moving to a different neighborhood. Now, the majority of buyers in Charleston are transplants. They're coming from all over, the Northeast, the Midwest, California, everywhere. People are packing up their lives and moving here because they want what Charleston offers: charm, history, warm weather, and yes, even the slower pace. But with that shift comes a new set of expectations. Buyers are coming here expecting things like open floor plans, updated kitchens, and outdoor spaces. Most of them aren't looking for homes that need a ton of work. Most of them have been through enough stress just getting here. And here's the kicker: many of these buyers are used to paying a premium. So when they see Charleston's prices, they're not as shocked as locals might think. Sure, they may grumble about it, but they're not walking away. They're adjusting. Let's shift gears for a second and talk about new construction, because this is a pretty hot topic right now, and I've got thoughts. If you've been driving around Charleston, or anywhere in the Low Country, really, You've probably noticed a ton of new neighborhoods popping up. It feels like every time you turn around, there's a new sign going up for a new development. While that's great for buyers because it means more inventory, it's also creating some pretty interesting dynamics. For one, builders are offering incentives like crazy right now. We're talking rate buydowns, closing cost assistance, and upgrades or flex money. Why? Because even though demand is still high, the builders know they're competing with resales. So if you're a buyer considering new construction, this is the time to negotiate. Don't just take the builder's first offer, push for more. They're expecting it, trust me. But here's where I get a little cautious. Not all new construction is created equal. Some of these neighborhoods are building so fast that quality can take a backseat to quantity. And the last thing you want is to move into a brand new home and start dealing with issues a few months later. So do your due diligence. You can even hire a home inspector for new construction. It may be worth the extra expense just to make sure that everything is done right. And while we're on the topic of building, let's talk about the impact of all this growth on infrastructure. Roads, schools, utilities, these things are feeling the strain of Charleston's rapid growth. And I'll be honest with you, this is one of the challenges of living here. Traffic can be a nightmare in some areas. Schools are getting overcrowded, and some neighborhoods are dealing with flooding issues because the infrastructure hasn't kept up with development. If you've got questions or trying to figure out your next move, let's talk. Whether you're buying, selling, investing, or if you're just curious about what's going on in Charleston real estate, I'm here to help. Are you ready to dive into this market, or are you still on the fence? Either way, I would love to hear from you. Let me know what's on your mind, and let's make this your best year yet. My name is Deneene Gary, the Southern Living Yankee. I would love to help you find home in the Low Country. Reach out today or download my relocation guide to find out how I can save you $1,000 on your closing costs. The link is in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me. So long for today.